Welcome home to USA Global TV and Radio, a place where dreams take flight, with authentic storytelling, diverse perspectives and meaningful conversations, where global stories unite and bridges are built beyond all borders. Discover world-class education, entertainment, hope and inspiration. Together, we're building bridges worldwide. Subscribe to our channel, USA Global TV. Download our app, USA Global TV. Be our guest or join our team. Visit usaglobaltv.com. Thanks to our founder and executive producer, Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Music score by Yeffy Tang from Cloud Road Music. Voiceover artist Mike Porter. Creative direction by Paul Garcia. USA Global TV and Radio, your home for global connection. All rights reserved. This video and its contents are the exclusive property of USA Global TV and Radio. Unauthorized use, duplication or redistribution in any form is strictly prohibited.
Welcome to Talking Heads on USA Global TV and Radio, where wisdom meets experience. Join a dynamic lineup of thought leaders, professionals, and changemakers from around the world. Dr. Madeline Chan from the UK, MARISKA Duprea from Australia, Red O'Loughlin from Texas, USA, Carolyn Heward from the UK, Zunette Lub from Cape Town, South Africa, as they share expert insights, personal journeys, and impactful strategies for success. Talking Heads isn't just a show, it's a global stage for education, collaboration, and inspiration. So elevate your knowledge, expand your perspective, engage in conversations that matter. Streaming globally, empowering locally, this is Talking Heads, only on USA Global TV and Radio.
Hello and welcome to USA Global TV and Radio. I am your host, MARISKA Duprea, on our Talking Head show today, and I'm hoping that all things technology will work the way it's supposed to work for the time that we are spending together. So with that being said, what are we going to do in our time together today? Well, we are going to look at 3 tips for effective coach-like conversations as a leader, and how to bring this a little bit more into our space within leadership. Because, well, one of the things that we have found is generally we want to tap into the knowledge of the people that work within our care a lot more. And we need to do this because of the rate of change of the environment around us, all the new things happening. And if we only rely on a select few to have the bright ideas, we will definitely fall behind. So whether this is AI implementation or whether this is any other area of business, we need to actually utilize the people that we have in our organization, all that brain power, to help us to innovate and move to places that would be beneficial not only for the individuals, but also for the organization itself. And we do this through coach-like conversations to really get the most out of our people. It also helps us to build in empowerment for our people and build capacity. So that's some of the reasons why coach-like conversations as a leader is really important, especially in this day and age. So the 3 things that we are going to look at during the show for our coach-like conversations is listening, questions, and presence. So that's the 3 different elements that we will be looking at throughout our time together today. And of course, all of these have more in-depth things that we can explore and understand more deeper, as well as broader, to understand why they are important in each. So I'll share some short ones for each one of them, and it is not the total compository of that subject matter. So this is a really brief overview, and to start us on that journey to have our coach-like conversations. So let's start with the first one, and that is listening skills. Now, you may or may not be familiar with something called active listening. Now, active listening in general is all important for no matter where you are within your organization. And when you want to have coach-like conversations, we want to notch up our listening skills even a little bit more. So when you think about active listening, typically we are listening with curiosity. We're really listening to what the other person is saying. We might reflect back to them what they are saying or what we are understanding of what they are saying in order for us to create some clarity. And then at the end of our listening, we might also share some ideas around what we think or our thoughts around the topic. So how we want to notch this up is when you think about active listening, it's really around the words that the person speak and the content. Now, when you are listening more in a coach-like conversation, we want to make sure that we listen not only to the words, but also to the underlying things. So is there any emotion that's coming up, any frustrations or hope that this person might be sharing with us, that even though they are using some content and words to express it, we can feel that there is something below the surface. We also want to look at body language. We want to make sure that we also feel the energy, the implicit things that is there that we might be experiencing for ourselves that's also in that conversation. So that's sort of dialing up our listening even a bit more. Now, when we are doing the listening, it's really to discover or find out how they are thinking about things. So when we have coach-like conversations, it's not just any conversation. They are very specific types of conversation where we want to ensure that we grow and develop this individual. We might be wanting to empower them, and we might want to tap into their strengths that they have during these conversations. Now, because that is what we are aiming for, we want to make sure that the listening is to a degree where we want to find out how far they can go for themselves without our input or assistance. Right. So sometimes we have a tendency, especially in this day and age, typically we insert things before we even know whether the person has thought about it. It might be unsolicited advice. It might not even be relevant to the situation, but we are so used to giving quick fixes that we forget to stand back and listen to where the other person is at. We also don't necessarily understand what it is that this person needs in this conversation. They might just need a sounding board. They might just need to be listened to. That's it. So understanding that what it is that's required within the conversation, and also helping them to go as far as they can possibly go on their own before we have to step in any way, shape, or form. And people will definitely surprise you. They will get a lot further solving their own problem than you might think. So that's the first thing when we think about the listening. Then the second one is staying curious, right? Because we want to find out how far they can go for themselves, stay curious. Listen to where is it that they're going off to. We might want to, as they're talking, go off to one area, and then they do a little bit of a turn and they move in a different direction. So staying curious while we're listening helps us to stay present in that conversation. And then something that I had a wonderful conversation with my husband the other day about listening and creating silence. So when I work with leaders in my field, typically I will tell them, well, count to 5. And when I had this conversation with my husband, I came to the conclusion that maybe counting to 5 might not be the thing. And what we came up with was a breath and a half. Now, this might be a little bit longer during coaching conversations. Typically, if you are actively listening, a breath and a half is a good amount of time that doesn't feel uncomfortable to wait before asking a question or before offering some feedback or any input that you might have. So what do I mean by a breath and a half? Once the person has stopped talking, we want to have a normal breath in, out, another one in. So that's the half, because on the next one, we're going to speak. Right. So typically for us to speak well, we need to inhale and then speak. Now, you might find yourself holding your breath as you are listening to this other person going, because you want to already give some input or information or ask a question. So if you find yourself doing that, I want to implore you to try out waiting for them to finish, letting go of that breath, because I don't know about you, but I can hold my breath for a couple of seconds, but then it starts impacting my brain. And then taking your breath in, out, in, and then offering your whatever it is that you wanted to offer. So that's during normal active listening. For coach-like conversations, make it 2.5 breaths. So it gives it a little bit more time. And the reason why we want to do this is by offering a little bit more time, the other person might start to speak again. Remember, one of the themes around listening is we want to encourage them to come as far as they can possibly come. Now, if we continuously interrupt, or if we continuously interject in too short a time, it doesn't give them an opportunity to actually help their brain to do whatever it needs to do in order to continue the thinking. And also look for their eyes. So when you look at the person while they are talking, if their eyes are wandering around, even if they don't speak, it might be that they are still thinking. So if that happens, even if you stay quiet, it's not uncomfortable for them because they are having some inner workings happening. And if we then start to speak into that space, the thought will drop out. The thought will be forgotten. And we don't all think at the same pace. So some people think really fast, and other people needs a little bit of space and time in order for them to construct their thinking in a way where it would actually make sense for somebody else. So that's when we look at listening. Then the second one is questions. Now, I have done quite a few of these talking head episodes around questioning, types of questions that work really well, how to be intentional about your questions. So you are more than welcome to go back and dive a bit deeper into the questioning realm if you so choose. In this episode, what we want to quickly look at within questions is our intention of our questions, generative questions, and making sure that we keep them short. So what do I mean by all of this? Firstly, our intention of the question is really, what is it? So if I ask this question, what would I get from it? So to give you an example, typically when we do risk assessment, we want to ask why at least 5 times, right? So we can get to the root cause of why the thing failed or why this thing didn't work out the way that it worked out. Now, when we're talking to a person in a coach-like conversation, why questions, as you will also discover in some of our other material, are definitely questions that we want to avoid. because why questions has a tendency to put us on the back foot. We feel like we need to defend the whatever it is that the question is about. So if you think about the intentionality of your question, think about what's the intention of this question and how will this question help this person to continue their own thinking further on that topic, right? We don't want to ask the question because we want to sneakily interject some advice or ask a question that's a yes-no question, or ask a question that might be validating our own, oh yeah, you're on the right track, that type of thing, especially not during coach-like conversations. So making sure that we are clear for ourselves on what's the intention of my question, asking it for myself and testing it out. What is the type of responses I will most probably get when I ask this question? And that's also a good way of playing around with questions just in general everyday conversations to find out, if I ask this question this way, what type of responses do I get back? Is that what I was intending? Yes or no? If it wasn't what I intended, how do I need to change my question to get the intended type of outcome? In coach-like conversations, the intended outcome is for that person to do the thinking. So remember, that's the intention. We want to draw out their brilliance, not our own. Then the next is generative questions. So we can have questions that's not generative. It might, like the why question, especially if we ask it of a person, we might get a defensive response. So think about your question, the intention of the question, and how can I frame this question to be generative? So it might still be that I want to solve a problem. It might be useful for us to understand why it went wrong. It might also, because we want to help the person to grow, understand what is it that they thought or saw and what made them decide then to go through that specific set of behaviors or decision-making process versus something else, right? Understanding that helps us to then be able to build awareness in where things might have gone wrong. And we can do it in a generative way instead of asking a why question. And then, of course, keeping our question short. We don't want to have too much of a preamble to the question, and we want to make sure that the question is also framed or pre-framed so that it makes sense. We don't want the question to feel like an attack. So if we are wondering about something, if something isn't clear to us, framing it as you mentioned this one thing, and I'm curious. I don't quite understand how you got to that. Would you mind explaining it to me so that I can see what it is that you thought about as you went through the process? So that makes it generative, and it also gives the person a bit of idea of why am I asking this question and not something else. So that's questions. Then the last one that we have is presence. Now, as a leader, presence is it's one of those things that's always important all of the time. And because we are leaders, we are always being looked up to. We are always in the spotlight. Whether you want to know that or not, people are looking at you for direction, for guidance, for behavioral norms, what's okay to do, what's not okay to do. So being present to that and being present in our conversations are really, really important for us as leaders, because we are constantly being evaluated in some shape or form, whether this is how am I supposed to act as a new employee? My boss will give me a good indication. What is okay? What is not okay? What is acceptable? where can I get sort of information? What sort of behaviors can or cannot be tolerated within this space? All of that typically comes from the leadership space. And not only what we do, but also what we accept and what we don't accept via behaviors from others. So presence is really important. And when it comes to a coaching conversation, it is even more so, because remember, we want to grow this person, potentially empowering them, making sure that their brilliance comes into our work environment. Now, if they don't feel safe, or if we come into that space and we are ourselves anxious or upset about something, it will definitely influence the other person. So we need to make sure our own place is grounded and we are present for that conversation. So a technique that helps with presence is the pause, notice, choose. So what we want to do is, first we want to pause. We want to stop ourselves. Always good to take a breath, right? Pause and think about what is the intention of this conversation. What is the energy that I am bringing into this conversation potentially? And what will or will not be helpful within this conversation? If I am upset, and it might not even be that I'm upset with this person, it might be that I'm upset for some way, other reason, that upsetness might also go into the conversation. And we don't want that to influence the conversation that we are having. So understanding that when it is okay or not okay for us to have these types of conversations, pausing helps us to do that. Because once we have paused, we now want to notice. We want to notice what's going on for me. Am I in a place where I can have this conversation? And what's going on for this other person? Are they in a place where we can have this conversation? Is this a difficult type of conversation where we need to be in a fairly well-regulated space? And maybe they won't be able to regulate themselves. It might be very upsetting for them, right? If that is the case, it means that it's so much more important for me to be doing the regulating for both of us, to help that we can have a conversation that's even keeled and we don't step on any toes. So understanding that, so that's the noticing. And then once I've noticed, I want to choose. So I want to choose, what is it? What behavior, what action am I going to take? How am I going to be in that conversation in order that I can get the impact from the intention that I have set for myself for that conversation, or that would serve both of us during the conversation. So understanding that helps us to be present to the here and now, where your feet is at, so that we can bring our best leadership self into our conversations. Now, of course, as you might have noticed, you can use any of these techniques in any conversation, and using all three of these techniques in your coach-like conversations is really where it's going to make a big difference, not only to you, but also to your team, because it will enable all of you to have a generative work environment, and you will become the leader that you wish you had. So with that, we have our 3 top tips for effective coach-like conversations as a leader: listening, questions, and presence. And in each one of them, we have the 3 different things to consider as we are going through our conversations. I look forward to, of course, having another conversation with you in the not so distant future. And you can also find me on LinkedIn, so we can get into contact to have our own conversation around potentially difficult conversations, as well as any other leadership-related conversations that you might be wondering about, as I work with new and emerging leaders, as well as leaders stepping up in the leadership space. You can also find me, of course, on my website. There you can fill in the little form and I will contact you so that we can start our conversation that way. So with that being said, I look forward to seeing you on this platform in some shape or form, and also to hear from you as you grow as a leader in your own space. Until next time, bye-bye for now.
Every woman carries a story of strength, of purpose, of light. Through her courage, the world is transformed. Through her grace, generations are inspired. This is Iconic Women. Within every woman lives a goddess, a celebration of brilliance, beauty, and empowerment. Join us every Wednesday at 11 a.m. New York, 4 p.m. London time, only here on USA, Global TVR, and radio. Featuring the iconic Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck, honoring voices that shine across the world. Subscribe to our YouTube channels, USA Global TV and Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck, to watch and engage with all our content. World-class education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration.
Thank you, viewers and listeners of USA Global TV and Radio, for joining us today. We're honored to have your time and attention as part of our global community. At USA Global TV and Radio, we believe in the power of authentic conversations, meaningful connections, and creating a world of possibilities together. Want to be part of something bigger? Join our team of elevated listeners at usaglobaltv.com, a space where your voice matters and your ability to listen transforms relationships. Stay connected with us across all our platforms for thought-provoking discussions, expert insights, and empowering stories. Subscribe to our channels at youtube.com/c/usaglobaltv. Follow us on social media and explore the endless opportunities we're creating for growth, learning, and inspiration. Together, we're not just broadcasting, we're building bridges and changing lives one conversation at a time. For inquiries, contact us at info@usaglobaltv.com. Music by Johnny Dyes. Produced by Executive Producer and Director Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Voiceover by Mike Porter. Creative Direction by Paul Garcia. All rights reserved. Copyright 2025. Visit usaglobaltv.com to view our full terms and conditions.